As you can see, we're out on site and inside the house today, and what I want to show you in this video is the procedure for doing what I call a pre-sheet. This happens just before you're about to sheet your internal walls, and all it is going around and checking that all your walls are plumb and straight and how you actually fix them if they're not. So obviously the first thing to do is make sure your walls are plumb, so pick a length of wall, plumb one corner. In this case I've got a straight edge and a spirit level, but you might be lucky enough to have a spirit level that'll do it in one hit, but you need to go from top plate to bottom plate, making sure that the wall is straight. We then plumb the other end. Okay, so we're making sure that it's plumb, make sure there's no bow in this stud, and because we've got that stud up against the wall, we might be able to pull it across, clamp it across, and re-screw it to the wall to straighten that stud. So once we've done the two ends, the next thing to do is to check the top and bottom plate are straight, and if the wall's short enough or you've got a straight edge that's long enough, you could do it with a straight edge just by placing it against the plates. But if you don't have a straight edge, then you can use a string line and blocks. So all you do is at one end you drive in a nail, you have 3 blocks of timber that are the same thickness, and you pull the string line tight across the end 2 blocks, and then you should be able to fit the middle block in between the string line and your plate. And of course if they touch, then it's in the right spot. If there's a gap, then your plate needs to come over, so you can then adjust your plate, fasten it back to the floor. So do that on the bottom, do that on the top as well. Okay, so now we've got our 2 end studs plumb and our top and bottom plate are level. So then what we need to do is we can start going through and just using our straight edge again, checking that our studs are straight. So check each stud individually, and when you find one that's not straight, then we have to do something about it. So I'll go in and show you this stud. So here's our stud. You can see there's a gap here between the stud and our straight edge, and you can actually see that the line of noggins is out as well, so that tells us there's a bow going this way in this stud. So a couple of ways we can do it. For the back of the stud, we can plane the back of the stud off with an electric plane, and the timber framing code, Australian timber framing code, actually says that studs may be planed to provide the minimum size remaining, provided the minimum size remaining is not less than the minimum design size required. For example, a stud of 90mm may be planed down to 70mm depth if the minimum design depth is required is 70mm. So you can plane them as long as you haven't built the frame to the absolute minimum standard that's required. So we can plane the back off the stud. With this gap here, there's 2 options. If you're going to plane it, then you really need to pack this. You need to pack this area out. And what I used to use was strips of 3mm melamine, and you just put one layer on at a time and feather it out at the ends. So this particular bow, there's the back cut off, so I've planed the back off there. Still got the gap here. So there's 2 strips of the melamine, and you'll see they feather off at the top and similarly at the bottom. So what you do is just staple them on. Used to use an air stapler, staple them on, and then give them a touch with the electric plane. The staples would do minimal damage to the electric plane. So that's how you feather out the ends, just an electric plane. You keep building it up until you eliminate the bow. The other option is to do what they call crippling. Now, again, the timber framing code says you can cripple 20% of the common studs, including those in bracing walls. But the only restriction is that the studs at the size of an opening or the studs supporting concentrated loads shall not be crippled. And we can see here it says that the maximum depth of saw cuts half the depth, or depth divided by 2, and we have to cleat the stud afterwards with a 42 by 19 by 600 mil cleat. Alright, and it has to be fastened with two 50 mil nails. Oh, sorry, with four 50 mil nails. So we'll go back and I'll show you the process. So there's our stud. You can see it's still got the bow in it. It's our line with the noggins. So the first thing we're going to do, pull out the noggins, give us some room to work, and then about halfway in the bow we're going to cut a saw cut halfway through the stud on the concave side of the stud. So you know, the inside of the bow, if you like. Alright, we can't go any more than half the depth of the stud deep, and yeah, that's about it. So then we cut ourselves a wedge and we drive the wedge into the stud, and as we drive the wedge in, the stud, the saw cut will open up and we'll actually pull the stud back tight, or back straight, and you drive that back, drive the wedge in, pull the stud back until you get it back straight. Once you've got it straight, you can drive a nail, skew a nail down through the wedge so it doesn't want to move, and then cut the wedge off, and then we put it on two cleats. Now in the timber frame case it says 42 by 19, but it's just as easy to use the same size timber that's in the wall already, so it makes it a little bit easier to put your noggins back in. So there you go, that's the process of straightening and pre-sheeting a wall. Also at this stage I would go around and check that I've had all my extra noggins in, especially in my wet areas. You want to put on noggins in to support your toilet roll holders, any handrails, towel rails, any of that sort of thing you're going to have throughout the house, blocking for your cistern, anything you're going to screw to your walls. You want to make sure there's a block in the actual frame to take it. We don't want to rely on hollow wall anchors to be holding up fittings and fixtures. So as I said, that's it. That's how we pre-sheet a wall.